This is TWiT.
So I really have been watching this all week, this crazy Russian leak of what is supposedly a M4 MacBook Pro way ahead of the release.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking Russia, deep fake. I'm thinking it's a fake.
Yeah, 100%. Like when it started off by, hey, here's a picture of the box, and I'm like, look, I know you think you're getting clever and trying to get hits, but Apple never lets like a boxed thing actually.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like it's a prototype sample that someone left in a bar or something like that. I'm going to be responsible and not talk about.
They
this.
said they bought it in a private Facebook group.
Yep.
So I think it's real, and I got a few reasons for it. One is I think you've got warehouses in China. Something walked away. They probably, this is the M4, the base model, which means that chip is probably, they made that in advance, right? It's not the one with the M4 Pro. So those they've been probably stockpiling for a while. A few of them walk away. How did they get to Russia? Apple isn't shipping products to Russia anyway.
Yeah.
Well, China to Russia is a pathway that exists that is pretty reasonable. And actually, the number one reason that I think it's real is because it's boring. Because it's literally a laptop we've seen before, a chip we've seen before, specs that are widely reported.
Yeah.
It is for a leak of new Apple hardware before it even gets announced. It's not that interesting. If you were going to fake it, you'd make it more interesting. You'd have a fake Mac Mini, or you'd have a fake M4 Pro benchmark or something, and we don't have any of that. It's just dull.
Also, we're seeing now we're seeing multiple videos from like multiple places. It's pretty big, and also maybe I'm just sort of like trying to backfill the logic, but it kind of makes sense, because name one country where Apple is now like not existing, and so it's not.
So if ever there were a black market, it'd be in Russia,
well,
right?
That's true, and B, Apple can't punish anybody in Russia for anything,
especially Romance V768.
Yeah,
because
well, and
apparently there are, according to Tom's Hardware, the latest is there are as many as 200 units up for sale. So this sounds like a pallet
it sounds like something like
a master case.
And it could be one of those things. This is where the danger of trying to ship really close to when you announce comes out, is because you're packing all these pallets. You're trying to make sure you're ready to go. You're trying to make sure that they're all at the stores, everything else. There's a whole bunch of logistics there. So if Apple was trying to make sure that these are ready the day of the announcement, or the day before, the 3 days after the announcement, they would have to be about this time. They'd have to be putting these on pallets and putting them on planes and getting them, into the United States. So the timing is about right for the leak, because it's early, but it sounds like it's about 2 weeks early, which is about when you'd have to be sending them from China. so it it wouldn't either most likely on the Chinese side. It does sound like a pallet just went the wrong way.
Apple, according to Mac Rumor, is potentially facing worst leak since iPhone 4 was left in a bar.
And they told us everything that we expected it to do. I don't think there's anything, as Jason said, I don't.
The only interesting thing is it's black, right? That's new.
Right, it's not new, but it would be new on the low end config. The low end config previously didn't do the space black on the low end, only on the higher end ones. So even that is like not that interesting.
I'm staring at a space black MacBook Pro. What am I thinking?
The iPhone 4,
I have one right here.
The iPhone 4, we didn't know anything about it, and it was a huge change in how it looked, and that was a big story. So that I'm not that I'm saying that a headline on the internet might be overhyping things a little bit.
I just think they should have. I think there was a lot of creativity missed here, because they could have had something like it pushes out air underneath it and makes it basically levitate a millimeter above the desk, like something to get just believable enough that you'd believe it, like that it'd be some crazy Apple thing. That would have been more fun.
I'm just curious to see like when so Gurman thinks that there's going to be an event like near the end of October. Like there was for the iPhone 4 thing, Steve Jobs like did a curt, like self-deprecating, quiet nod. Well, some of you might have seen this before, but here's the whatever. I'm wondering like if they're going to acknowledge this at all. Like if they do something cool, like Tim Cook, like is icing his knuckles. With fresh bruises on his knuckles, like don't worry, we've traced the source of the leak.
But I mean, in reality, they probably shot the video for it like last month.
Yeah.
So
Really?
yeah. Right. I mean, how long does it take to do all the prep
I would
work on
definitely
those
do it
things?
last month. Yeah, I mean, I would have been shooting I would have probably been shooting right after the iPhone one, or even before that.
Yeah.
You have the segments of the stuff that you're going to talk about, and then you have the things that are going to be specific that you're not sure exactly what you're going to say. But the stuff about, they probably would have been doing in August or September. August.
Isn't it hard
September.
to match though? I mean, Tim might lose weight.
Those are all big. He seems to be pretty constant, but
exactly.
the turns out if you work out 2 hours a day, an hour a day, you stay the same.
Yeah.
So but I think that usually what happens if you look at those are whole big segments. They go underground, they go to some mountaintop, they go to something. You can shoot all those segments completely separately.
Yeah.
And you'd pick the ones that you absolutely know what you're going to say, and then there'll be a handful of them. But I would not want to go into a release at the end of October without all the footage in the can 2 or 3 weeks before. So
I know.
the video is probably sitting there is done. They're probably doing play out tests from the encoders to make sure that it's all working. I mean, but that's, they're probably in the 2 weeks out. They're probably in play out tests. They're probably not doing any.
So
production.
have we learned anything from this? So now I'm going to accept that it is a genuine leak. I was very skeptical, but I'm going to accept that. Have we learned anything from it?
Not really. There have been some Geekbench scores allegedly that have performed maybe as well. Not
How they get it
dramatically,
running? Can you get it running without an Apple account? And if you're in Russia?
Sure. If you can download Geekbench directly from Primate Labs if you want to.
But I mean, how do you get the computer? You can get the computer. It's not. Couldn't Apple have locked these?
You have to activate
it.
it.
Fell off the truck. But deactivate them.
But maybe they didn't know. They just didn't know that this palette was out there. So they
okay.
That's my guess, is that they were able to activate it.
I would be suspicious of anybody. Like as weird as it would be to buy one of these alleged 200 Macs, Apple's going to know exactly those serial numbers.
Yeah, only buy it if you're a YouTuber and you can get the video out before they.
Well, and with those serial numbers and the way things are tracked, I do feel a little bad for whoever thought that this was a good idea in China, because this is going to go.
Oh, they'll find that
culprit. Factory is.
Yeah, they're going to, and they don't play nicely over there, so it'll be pretty rough, But I think that the Geekbench is the only real surprise, is that it looks like the M4 was 25% faster than the M3, which is
wow.
That's a big jump.
It's good, but like, we have iPad M4 benchmarks already, so it's not as if we didn't see what the M4 speed was. It's just seeing it in the context and comparing it to M3, which didn't exist on the iPad. But like, even that is muted. It is. I mean, I feel bad. It's like you finally got Apple hardware 3 weeks before it came out.
It's nothing special.
But it's not that interesting.
Well,
Sorry.
wait a minute. If this is the base model and it's 16 gigs, could you infer that this might be the base RAM as well?
Yeah, that's a possibility that's been rumored. That is I think you hit on it. I think that, and the fact that the Space Black config is apparently going to be in the base model, if this is the base model, are the two pieces of news. So going up to 16, which was rumored.
Well, we know that the iPhone has more RAM for Apple Intelligence. I presume that they put more RAM in their machines for that as well, right?
I assume so.
It's interesting. I wonder if that is the base model or whether that's just a palette of 16 gigabyte ones. They got a lot of heat in the past about having to when Apple has to go back and say, here's why it's not important to have you have to go look beyond the specs of an Apple piece of hardware. It's not important to have more than 8 gigabytes of system RAM. Don't know if that's the base model now, or whether that's just now it's still just available at 16.
10-core CPU, 10-core GPU. This is from the label, which was one of the leaks. 14-inch screen, 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports. Is that new? HDMI port. One more. Yeah. Well, there were 2 Thunderbolt 4s and then one. I can't remember. I'm looking at mine and it has 3 Type-C ports, but I don't know if they're all Thunderbolt 4.
It depends on the chip.
Right. Depends on the chip. Okay. MagSafe 3, headphone jack. So yeah, this looks pretty standard. Well, you know what? We're going to find out when. When are we going to find out? Gurman says they'll be shipping them early November. Like
shipping November 1st. I think it's all going to pop off the week of the 28th. Gurman says, so Mark Gurman at Bloomberg says, Apple Intelligence release is which is 18.1, is targeted for the 28th. I would be surprised, and that it's going to ship on the 1st. I would be surprised, honestly, if it was not the 28th that they announced these things, because if you're going to ship Apple Intelligence on the 28th, then you probably want to use, if you're going to do a press event or a video or whatever, use that day as your big day to say Apple Intelligence is here. New Macs are here. A new iPad is here. Everything supports it. I suppose you could do it the next day. I don't think it really matters because I think this is just a video event and there'll be some ancillary sort of like press briefings, but that most people, they'll just be, on the 21st or 22nd, they'll say, join us for a video on Monday or Tuesday of next week.
I mean, and it gives you the opportunity to be scary good.
They don't want to do that again.
This is that event time. Although, no, Alex, that's the funny thing. What else is happening that week? Well, Scary Rich, because the annual or the quarterly results will come out on Halloween night, basically 5 p.m. Eastern. Halloween.
And this is the first quarter with the new iPhone in it, so it will be.
And that's
although only a little bit, right?
Yeah,
only a couple weeks.
But still, that I think they're going to want to address that. Like the financial news outlets have been talking a lot about expectations for the iPhone 16, both referring back to things like comments that Ming-Chi Kuo made, and also doing a follow up of what happened to the stock price after Ming-Chi Kuo's speculation. So they're not going to have great numbers, but I think they're going to want to at least give shareholders and analysts some sort of, as they say, some color on the iPhone 16 sales and what proportions are the Pros and what proportions are the 16.
Yeah, they like to do that because they'll be able to say, well, the results are only 2 weeks of sales, but we've now had 6 weeks of sales, and we can tell you this, right? That's the kind of thing that they'll do if they want to try to spin sort of like how iPhone sales are going, which they probably do.
So the 28th is a Monday, and then Friday is the 1st. So they would announce Monday with availability the following Friday. Does that sound right? Would you be able to order it Monday for pickup on Friday?
I would imagine that, you'd be able to order it that day or maybe the next day, something like that. The only question is about availability. Will there be some quirks to the availability? They don't want to do that, but that's a possibility, is that the availability will be limited for the new chips, right? For M4 Pro, that maybe that availability.
Apple's breathing a sigh of relief that the longshoremen didn't go on strike.
Well, that's East Coast. I think the West Coast would have been. I think most of
they all come into the Western
China
ports.
Coming into the West Coast.
Yeah, and they still fly, a lot of them too. The only other thing I would throw out there is that it's possible they could do this on the 21st, and I only say that because that would allow them a longer runway for the orders. And sometimes that is valuable. It's like they'll ship the end of next week instead, but I'm not sure for the Mac and the
That's
iPad
how they do
mini,
iPhones.
It matters. That's how they do
announce
iPhones.
early in the week for order, at the end of the week for delivery the following week.
So it could be the 21st or 22nd as well, if they wanted to do that way and get it out of Halloween week, which would be fine. But I don't know. They very frequently make product announcements right before they do their quarterly earnings, and that would put it smack dab in the week of the 28th.
So Gurman is not saying when the announcement is. He's
not.
Carefully staying away from that. He's just saying November 1st is when deliveries.
Yeah. And I think that speaks also to the fact that this is not just like last year, it's not a traditional event. Last year, if you remember, they played a video. It was late in the day, Eastern time. They had like a thing for like influencers in New York City that day.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But they did, but that's all it was. There was no big public event. They did some media briefings earlier in the day under an embargo, and that was it. So it will probably be that playbook. And if you're not setting up an actual event, the people involved in planning it are different. And if you're Mark Gurman and you've got sources inside like your event planning group, or even the people who are making the video, none of them may know that date because they don't need to.
Right. It's compartmentalized.
They like it that way. Double secret.
Is this where you might announce a new HomePod or a new Apple TV or anything like that?
I mean, I might, but that's not what Mark Gurman says. It sounds like this is very much going to be, it's actually a lot if you think about the Mac, because it's going to be MacBook Pro with an M4 and an M4 Pro chip. It's going to be Mac Mini with an M4 and an M4 Pro chip, and that's going to be the redesigned Mac Mini that's much smaller, and that's going to be cool. They're gonna update the iMac to M4 because remember they're trying to get M3 out of the product line as quickly as they can, and then iPad mini is the other thing that's probably on the agenda here. And that's really interesting because I don't know what chip they're going to put in it. I imagine it'll be an A series chip, but I do think it will probably support Apple Intelligence. I don't think they want to ship anything that doesn't. So it might even be like the same chip that's in the iPhone 16. Wouldn't surprise me if that's the chip that's in there.
Yeah. I love my mini. I mean, this is just a nice form factor. This is from 2021. That's the last release date. So it's got COVID all over it. But other than that,
I can't tell you how much I want a new Mac Mini.
I love this thing. And I mean, I don't know how much you could improve it. It doesn't have a home button. It has a fingerprint reader on. I hope they don't take that off.
No, I don't think
on
so.
the on-off button. I love that.
Works with
the
Apple
bezels
Pencil.
aren't huge, but I guess they could be a little smaller.
Yeah, I think they'll update it. Actually, Andy makes a good point. Maybe it supports the Pencil 2 or the Pencil Pro, I guess we're calling it. And maybe they'll update the display. Maybe they won't. It really might just be the chip and Apple Intelligence. And that's fine. Again, like the point of the mini is, even that old mini is still pretty good. And so getting it back.
That's the thing. I can't justify buying a new one. There's nothing I would say, oh, it's slow. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. I did learn something kind of recently about the market for the iPad mini that made me feel confident they're going to keep it around for in the indefinite future, but also making me wonder if they don't necessarily have a motive to make it super powerful or super current compared to like standard iPads. That apparently we all know that like the regular iPad has sort of displaced aviation documentation. Like in the pilots have to carry checklists, manuals, everything, charts, everything. Now they do it. That's all been standardized on the iPad.
They strap them to their thighs in some cases.
Well, but I'm talking about like from commercial pilots
for
all the way
fighter
to
jets.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking about like the people who are flying to Dallas and everything else. Apparently, the iPad Mini is super popular for that. Again, given that the software infrastructure is all there for like private pilots, like people who are in a small cockpit who don't have necessarily space for a big one. So number one, that makes me feel good because it doesn't mean that this is this fringe product that maybe Apple wants to get rid of, but also maybe they're not necessarily interested or motivated to make it like a iPad Mini Pro or anything kind of close to that. I'm sure they'll keep it current. I'm sure that Jason is right that anything that Apple ships has to be compatible with Apple Intelligence. So that's going to be like basic stakes from now on.
Mini Pro, you complete me.